Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/ChiroBusinessMojo. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player.
Welcome to the Chiro Business Mojo podcast, where we deconstruct the methods, marketing, and mindset of successful business people and chiropractors from around the world. And now your host, Dr. Richard Day.
Dr. Jamie Richards is a passionate speaker on health, performance, productivity, nutrition, and fitness. He is CEO of Life by Design Incorporated with 25 locations worldwide and director of the Life by Design Center and hosts multiple radio shows and podcasts. As a dedicated father and husband, he knows the challenges of living a healthy lifestyle in a busy world and has developed peak strategies to be successful and help others do the same. Welcome, Dr. Jamie Richards.
Richard, thank you for having me on the show today.
You bet. It's a pleasure, and feel free to jump in and correct or add to anything I may have glossed over in that bio.
No, nothing major missed there other than a new baby on the way to add to the first one. So, pretty exciting stuff coming down the pipe here.
Wow, congratulations. That is fantastic.
Thank you.
We have a 1 month old in our house.
Wow.
Well, to go along with the other ones, so it's a little crazy here.
Well, I guess I'll be knowing more what that's like pretty soon.
Yep, you'll be a new member of that club. Well, I wanted to talk to you today a little bit about Life by Design. I came across you on the internet and was really intrigued by the concept, and not just what you're doing in terms of chiropractic offices, but the whole lifestyle. So I wanted to dive into that a little bit, and why don't you tell us about Life by Design?
Sure. I mean, Life by Design really is two things, especially to the chiropractor, is a practice model itself, and it's a philosophy. So, really the concept behind Life by Design was born out of more of a need to, figure out a way to communicate a lot of the chiropractic principles to a public that really wasn't open in many ways to chiropractic, at least not the chiropractic that I had in mind and the chiropractic that we practiced in our practice. So, as I was creating a workshop for, I believe it was a nutrition workshop, I was using a presentation on my Apple computer, and one of the placeholders was a flower. And as I was creating the presentation, this image holder, I was looking at it and I thought, it's interesting. This flower, and all flowers, they tend to be healthy. And as long as the flower gets all the things that it needs, it tends to thrive and it tends to be well. And so I started to piece this together, this concept of requirements for this flower. And I started to realize that the same principle was true for, the stem of the flower. If somebody, say, pushed a rock up against the stem of the flower, I thought, that's kind of like the spinal cord. And really, if that requirement wasn't met, the flower wouldn't be healthy. So I started to use that analogy and really started to resonate with people, and it clicked. And, long story short here, it all developed into a practice model that's built around this basic framework of the body has requirements. And as long as the requirements are met, the natural default state of the body is health, which, is really where we got the trademark statement for Life by Design that, we believe every human being is designed to be extraordinary. As a business model, I realized the same requirements and strategies existed for a business. So your team, your systems, your communication, leadership. And if you just had those requirements met in your practice and your business, it would be successful as well. So kind of two prongs. We have the layperson communication for Life by Design, and then we have our business coaching and consulting, and we actually use the exact same model.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about the clinics themselves. I want to know if they're all sort of the same model across the board. And what I mean by that is when I checked out the website, I saw something that looks like a workout component, and then there's the chiropractic component, and then like a smoothie bar as well. So are they all following that model, or is this just one location in particular?
Well, the location that I'm in is the flagship office, and this was, part of what I wanted to create was really a place that embodied all of the Life by Design principles. So yes, I mean, sure, the Life by Design Center is the hub. So we have our corrective care office, we have a strength and conditioning center, and then the next step is developing a healthy, cafe, if you'll put it that way. The whole program has those components, and in addition, a whole Think by Design component, which is goal setting, stress adaptability and some other pieces there. But some of the other offices have parts and components. So for instance, some of our offices in Ottawa, Canada have the office and then a CrossFit training facility that's part of it. London, Ontario, we have 2 offices and a CrossFit training facility. There's another training facility out east. So some of them have components. The other ones are corrective offices, and they affiliate themselves with, say, local businesses, gyms, restaurants that would embody those principles. The end result here is you're creating a community is moving towards this ultimate gold standard. Whether you have every component or some of them, the core component is the chiropractic component.
What a great idea. I really like what you're doing. And I'm very intrigued by the business side of things. Oftentimes I tell people that we all graduate with the same piece of paper, basically, but we don't always end up in the same place. And your path from a business standpoint, I think, is very interesting. Can you tell us a little bit of information? Did you start at a single location and then grow, or how did this all come about and turn into what it is today?
Well, yeah, it really was born, as I said, it was born out of my own practice. So, the own need to figure out how to communicate this message to more people and really start to create a movement. And I would say that's really the trademark of Life by Design. It started off as, say, a lifestyle program. And then as it developed, we realized we did have a business model. And so, it's gone on to be more than that. But it's the community that really forms the central component. In terms of where it came from, yes, it started in my practice, my brother's practice, and then it was born into another practice in London, Ontario, and the core of us started to grow it. And then we started to bring on licensees. And now it's expanded where these offices, they are their own practices. We have no, financial say in terms of percentages and things like that. So they're not franchises. They're licensed under the Life by Design model, which simply means we're going to teach you how to run a Life by Design practice, how to run a very successful business, and then you'll use that brand for your own well-being, for your own practice and your own community, but you'll own your practice entirely. So we have that kind of 25 office set up and growing. And then we also have a whole other wing of offices that we wouldn't call them what we call an elite office or a Life by Design office, but we still coach them and consult them and give them advice and work them through a business model, but they don't use the actual brand in their communication.
Okay, so you do offer some coaching for someone who's not necessarily a Life by Design doc.
Yeah, it's not always a great fit for everybody, so we do put people through an application process, and we have a large body now that we've created a whole other wing, this Life by Design for chiropractors. We now have a large body of offices that we're doing one-on-one coaching, consulting, and the whole other wing, something we're really excited about is the whole of marketing. It's one of those things in chiropractic that we still generally market like it's 1986. And, that's the message that we're portraying, whereas we've created a very robust online marketing system. We have a whole web development company now. So, there's a lot of really cool things we're doing.
Well, while we're on that topic, you mentioned web development and social media. Is that what's really working for you today? Or what are you doing to really get your message out there?
Yeah, it is working. And there's a lot of fundamental components that need to be put in place. And I think a lot of people see, Facebook, and I need a Facebook page, and I'll just put posts up. And that's one tiny little component. There's a huge funnel that we've built. You have to engage people definitely on social media. That is where people are. There's, billions of people on Facebook, for example. And you have to get people off of social media, though, onto your list. And then once they're on your list, you need to educate them and teach them and really move them along the buying process until they go ahead and make a purchase from you and then become, say, an active practice member. The website itself, when you create a website, we call it a conversion-based website. So most chiropractic websites are very informational. There's a lot of, different components on them. Many of the things on them are, quite disqualifying. There's information that really shouldn't be on there for people to see. What people should do when they go to your website, and the key here is you have to drive traffic to your website, and we do that. When they're at your website, they should really have 2 options. They should book a consultation. So those are the people who are very pre-qualified. They're very hot leads. They're ready to come see you. They should book a consultation. And the next thing is, maybe they're more warm. They need a little more time. They should be opting in for something of interest to them, which follows up a series of emails or pieces of information or value pieces to continue to move them along the process. So, that's a very simplified kind of communication. But yeah, we have lots of people coming from our social media to our website, converted into either a direct consultation or into some type of opt-in, which then we follow up with them through a series of emails and then a regular email on a consistent basis. And, people who get on your list could take them 12, 24 months, 36 months before they ever come see you. But that's how you start to develop the pre-qualification that makes a huge difference when they get to your door because they're already ready to buy.
Yeah, and it's I think we've never done it. It's something we've talked about doing, but the more I study it, what I'm seeing is that people feel like they have a relationship with you, even though they've never met you, because, like you said, the cycle might be 12 months or something like that. But there's a brand familiarity, and when they walk in, by the time that happens, when they need you, they've read through your materials and know what you're all about.
Absolutely. It makes life so much easier. And, having the pre-qualification on the front end saves you so much time. So, for example, an office might be trying to generate as many new patients as possible. And maybe they feel like they need 20, 30, 40 new patients a month just to maintain, a volume that allows them to be successful and profitable. But don't forget how much time and energy a new person takes. You have to process them. Your staff's involved. There's a review time with them. So there's all these pieces. So if you have 40 new people come to your practice that aren't pre-qualified and only 20 of them are accepted into your practice, that's 20 people that you spent a lot of time with that, basically ended up being wasted. If I can narrow that down and just have the right 15 or 20 people come into my practice and have all 15 or 20 of them be accepted into, whatever the care program we're going to develop for them is, man, my life not only is much easier and simpler, but it's much less stressful as well.
I really like that. I hear people say anyone with a pulse and a spine is going to be my patient. And, and maybe when you're first starting out, I remember being in that position. But definitely, if you find that person who you connect with and they connect with you, 80% of the work is done and you work from there.
Oh, it's amazing when you actually put it into play. And we're in an interesting situation just because the Life by Design Center is a new office. So I've really only been in the center for, I want to say 18 months. And just to give you an idea, I work 2.5 days a week. I have one staff member, and right now we're at 18 months. And I think this week we had around 190 or 195 checkups for the week in 2.5 days after 18 months. And the most amazing part of that is I average less than 10 new patients a month.
Wow. Not a bad part-time job.
It's not a bad part-time job. I mean, we're actually in the process now of adding associates so we can expand the practice and kind of grow it to its full potential. But the point is that the system works. And when done properly, people are ready for the type of chiropractic that we're introducing them to versus us, trying to convince them. It really is a very, very simple process. And, we're accepting almost every single case. When I say accepted, my mentality around people coming into my practice is it's not about them, accepting my recommendations. It's about me deciding whether I'm going to accept you. Mm-hmm. And my requirements for acceptance are that you follow my corrective care or original care program that I set for you. And there's a couple other requirements that I have for you. And, we're accepting people at a very high rate, not just because, our system is so great, but also because of the pre-qualification portion of it, right? I mean, if I had everything that I do now, but I had no pre-qualification, it wouldn't be a 95% acceptance rate. I'd have to suffer the same consequence of other people. So getting it right on the front end saves you that time and energy on the back end.
Well, it sounds like you're providing incredible value that's really giving you the ability to be selective when people come in. And I think maybe that doesn't occur to some folks out there, that the more you put into it, the better service you give when the lines are, around the building, so to speak, and you have say in well, I think in one way that it occurs to me is that you're going to get a better recovery rate because the people who are coming in are the ones are going to follow everything you're saying.
Well, that's it. They're following the full system. So, what we practice and what we call the Life by Design chiropractic method includes our analysis and corrective care to the spine and nervous system and the ongoing analysis of that system. It also includes teaching people corrective exercises, making sure they're meeting the nutritional requirements and the, stress adaptability requirements. So the system works. And when people implement it and they do it on a, fairly consistent basis, they get amazing results. So we see amazing neurological and structural change if people do all the steps. So getting their agreement on the front end is extremely valuable for us to get more success on the back end, which obviously then drives more referrals, and the process just keeps going on and on. The hard part is when you're brand new and when you're turning people away. And we did that. We just drew our line in the sand, and we had our system, we had our model. And to give you an example, this week, I think this is a very telling case. Guy came in 5 months ago, and came in with his wife. He was referred to the practice. He had injured his elbow, and he fell down the stairs. And I basically did the consult, and I said to him straight up, I said, I don't know if what's happening with your elbow has anything to do with the function of your spine and nervous system, but it may. So let me give you a brief, understanding of how this plays together. So I gave him the basic framework of what we do. Mm-hmm. And I said, but at this point, what I would do, I said, I wouldn't actually go into the examination right now. I said, I would go to your medical doctor and I would get this elbow looked at. And his wife was so happy that I'd said that. So he went, turned out he had a fractured elbow. So many doctors would have tried to convince him, the nerves to the neck, they go to your elbow. And this whole conversation, I sent him away. He got his elbow taken care of. He got pins in it, walks in the other day, stops at the front desk and said, I have one more visit with a surgeon, but once that's done, I want to come in and get my spine looked at, because what Dr. Jamie showed me at my consultation made so much sense that now I'm coming back and I want that.
Such a great point. One of my observations is that chiropractors try to own everything, and there's a lot we can do and we can be beneficial for a lot of folks. But there's another lesson under there, which is you've just established incredible credibility in yourself and trust between patient and doctor by saying this isn't I may not be the person for this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a line I love, and this is a colleague of mine, Dr. Cratio Jug, and he is one of our Life by Design directors. And he always says, chiropractic is for everybody, but I'm not everybody's chiropractor.
Yep. Absolutely true. I think we've all had our fair share of patients where, for whatever reason, maybe it's a personality thing, but you think this isn't a good fit. And so there can be a lot of different reasons why the patient and the chiropractor may not be a good match. Mm-hmm. Well, I want to shift and talk about just some of the systems you use in your office. I would guess that having the locations and experience you've figured out and dialed in how to do things a certain way. Can you share with us any of your systems in the office right now?
Sure. I mean, we are definitely systems focused. So, we have hundreds of different systems in the office. We could spend hours and hours and hours. And one of the projects we're working on right now at Life by Design for Chiropractors is we're actually creating video modules to walk people through the entire Life by Design system. So for those offices that don't want to do, say, one-on-one coaching or want one-on-one coaching with some other stuff, we're creating a video module system to unfold all of this. But I mean, we have systems, Richard, from everything, concerning, say, workshop organization and follow up to, day one, day two, your feedback cycles, how we communicate, I mean, everything. There's literally hundreds and hundreds of systems. So, I mean, if you have something specific you'd love to know more about, I'm happy to pick one out of there and we can talk a little bit more about it.
Well, let me see. I'll talk to you a little bit about your videos. Are you producing these yourself, or are you farming this out? Because I've had chiropractors ask me, where do I can hold up my iPhone and make a video. Mm-hmm. What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so I mean, we're pretty solid with technology at Life by Design for Chiropractors. So, we'll record a lot of the videos ourselves. I have a full setup with the light boxes and the video camera and the good microphone, all that kind of stuff. We also have a company that we use that does some of our more high-end videos. Mm-hmm. So if you've gone to my website, if you go to Life by Design for Chiropractors, you can see. If you also go to Life by Design Center, if you want to see my personal website, you can see some of the videos there, the introductory video and so on. So we've recorded those professionally. The ones that will be the module videos, that's just me on either a green screen or a background with the light boxes. I find that you don't need to go the technology is there. As you know, we're recording this podcast. It doesn't take a lot to get things set up to be able to, leverage technology these days. It's not an expensive setup and it's not overly complicated. So I think a lot of doctors, if you're not doing anything, sure, get your iPhone out, record some videos, put them on your Facebook page, get some engagement, boost your post, get people back to your website and get them, watching what you're doing and learning more about you. If you want to build more, deeper level videos that are higher quality, sure, knock yourself out. But I think for the most part, just getting people doing something and getting our doctors engaging and creating videos and audios and things like that, anything is going to be more beneficial than what most offices are doing right now.
Well, this podcast is all about providing actionable content for our listeners. So our listeners are twofold. We've got new docs and then experienced docs. So do you have a single piece of advice or a series of action steps that you would recommend someone implement tomorrow for both the new doc and the experienced doc?
Sure. It would really come down to what you're trying to accomplish. So, a big thing that we focus people around is, and this might sound completely out in left field, not something people would expect, which is probably why people aren't doing it. But the one big key that I find missing in all my coaching, consulting, and it's one of the places I start with a lot of the new doctors and a lot of the doctors who've been in practice, is building a productivity system. So, creating a model for work capacity, because this is what I find is people in chiropractic, doctors, team, staff, spouses, big dreamers, right? We have huge visions. We have very little action. How many people have thought about creating a podcast? And here you are, you've created a podcast. We have 2 podcasts. Probably thousands of chiropractors, tens of thousands have thought, hey, I should do a podcast, but they didn't do it. So my first piece of advice to chiropractors is just to create a productivity system and a productivity model. So I'll give you an actionable map here that we use. We actually have a program called the Chiropractic Productivity System. But that said, within that system, there's a 3-day split that we teach our offices. And this is something that we adapted from a program called Strategic Coach. We've coached with, the world's best entrepreneurial program, Dan Sullivan, not the chiropractor Dan, but Dan Sullivan, the entrepreneur, coached more than any entrepreneurs in the entire world. Anyway, they have a 3-day system. We've modified it for chiropractors. So what I always have our offices do is I have them break up their week into practice days. So that's the days you're in practice. Okay. Into prep days, which is the days you're preparing or working on your business, not in your business, but on your business, and then personal days, right? The days that people often miss because in a small business, you're spending time and you're online and you're doing reports, and our personal days go by the wayside. So the first step is to take your 7 days and to begin to split it up. So if it's a practice day, the only thing that gets done on practice days is practice things. So checking and correcting people, doing reports, anything that's related to practice gets done on those days. The key to the whole system, though, is to have at least 1 or 2 prep days or prep periods. Because if you don't have the time carved out in your schedule to actually do the things that are on your big dreamers list, then you're always going to have them on your list. So, for example, in my schedule, Monday from 6 a.m. until 5:30 p.m., so 11 and a half hours, I sit at my desk and I work. And I have a mapped out plan of what that day is going to look like right down to the hour. And I work through different projects, whether it's writing blog posts, recording videos. I don't coach clients. I don't take calls. I don't do anything on Monday other than sit at my desk and work. When it's practice day, I don't do any work. I show up, I have my team meetings, I have my pre-shift huddles, I prep reports, maybe there's some marketing things I'm working on, I check and correct people all day, and then I go home and I spend time with my family. And when it's personal days, I don't look at my phone, I don't go on Facebook, I don't do work. So I've got them very segmented to allow me to be hyper-focused on each one of those days. So if I could give a new doc or even an experienced doc the same thing, the same piece of information, is to make sure you have a very robust and mapped out productivity model for you to actually get done what you say you want to get done.
That is so key. I find that so many people go through life really each day to day, which turns into week to week, month to month, without a game plan. And proper preparation and planning can make such a difference instead of sort of floating by. And the other thing I think you touched on just a little bit is Parkinson's law, if you've heard of this, so that the time you have for something, whatever you need to get done, that task expands to fill that time. And if you don't plan that time, you're going to end up wasting, taking what could have been a 15-minute project and you spread it out over 3 hours because you knew you had 3 hours.
Right. So true. I did not know that law, but I know that principle. That's for sure.
Well, that's great advice for, like you said, a new or experienced doc. And I got to ask you, what is going on in Canada? The last few folks I've talked to are in Canada, and is it a hub of chiropractic?
I don't know if it's a hub of chiropractic or not. I mean, there's some great people here, some great doctors, some great chiropractors, and there always has been. So maybe it's just maybe it's just being Canadian more than anything else.
Well, it's cool, and I've started saying productivity instead of productivity, so it's rubbing off on.
Well, my wife is American, so there's lots of tomato for sure.
Well, let's shift to a little bit more of the big picture. We've touched on it, but what's a failure you've had in life? We learn a lot from success, but even more from failure.
Yeah, like most people, I've had my fair share of failures. I'm on my second marriage, so I've had a failed marriage, if you want to look at it like that. Obviously, it was a huge growth experience at the same time, and I can say that I wouldn't be who I am or where I am without that. So, there's definitely some gifts in there, and obviously I wouldn't have the partner I have now. So, and my daughter and our new baby coming along the way. So, obviously huge gifts along that process. Our first training facility. So this is my third office and my third training facility. Our first training facility, we got into a situation with another investor, business partner, and went through a bunch of legal maneuvers. And actually, we got bought out of our first gym, kind of out from under our feet, and went on. Literally, I think it was 90 days later, we had our next training facility renovated and opened and moved all the members who wanted to follow us there. So,
wow.
There was we've had some big challenges along the way. And, you learn the lessons that failure is going to happen. Obviously, we try and, minimize the negative effects of that and, just constantly working towards what the next thing is going to be. So I think if anything, it's just taught me that, stuff happens and it's going to happen and you can try and protect yourself against it, control the controllables, and just stick to the plan. And when you do that, things continue to work out. There's very few things in life that are so devastating that, your life is going to be over if it happens. There's a lot of things that will set you back. There's things that definitely will, make you upset or angry. But, really when it comes down to it, it's taught me to be able to really roll with the punches and just get on with it. And I'm sure anybody who has their own business, or has had any failure in their life just realizes that, stuff happens and then you just get to the next day and you do it all again.
I heard something like that wonderfully expressed from a Stoic philosopher, and it was control what you can, cope with what you can't, and concentrate on what matters. Yeah,
I love that. That's I didn't say it quite as well, Richard, but that's exactly what I'm thinking. Yes, and it's definitely I would say it's definitely taught me to not care as much about the things that aren't important to me, and not get upset about things that aren't a part of my value system, and just let those things go and disappear.
So powerful. Let me ask you this. When you think of the word successful, who or what do you think of and why?
For me, I think about, successful as, meeting your own values. So that's a big thing for me, and the question I come back to a lot with either myself or my family or my doctors, what do you want? And I see it a lot in the profession. We base success off other people's visions. So I think we get caught up a lot in the different people that get up on stage and speak. And, I've had the opportunity to be that person on a regular basis. So same thing, whatever I'm up there talking about or what I'm saying or what I'm proposing as a vision, that's my vision. And that's what I think, I want to accomplish in my life. So sometimes people that we're working with, they'll be really hung up on the fact that they're not seeing, 500 people a week or 300 people a week or whatever the number is that they think they're supposed to be seeing or the profit that they're supposed to be making. So I think that, we really need to figure out what we want. So I think that's a great question, just to write on a whiteboard or put in front of yourself on a piece of paper. What do you want? And really be selfish about it. Even with my family, we talk a lot about rational self-interest. What do you want? What do you want to do? What's going to make you happy? And if that matches up with what's going to make me happy, we'll do it together. And if it doesn't, I'll support you in it, but you go do it yourself. I don't want to hold you back from that. And the same is true for us as doctors. We need to figure out what makes us happy and start living our life and driving our actions towards the things that we value most.
So you've touched on some of these already with mentioning planning, but do you have any daily rituals, habits, or affirmations every day?
And so that's part of our chiropractic productivity system that we teach other doctors as well. But same idea. We have a couple really, I think, powerful ones that are built in there. Nothing new, but we have a power hour. So we'll do a power hour in the morning, which is really just either exercise or education. So something I'm learning, reading, listening to a podcast or training. Throughout the day, there's a series of other things. One that I created called the PP60, which is just spending the first 60 minutes of your work period on the highest value or the highest important project. Goes back to what we talked about before. If you don't, you get in there and it's a work day or a prep day, as we'll call it. If all of a sudden you got your Facebook open, you're checking emails, you go down that rabbit hole, you're not going to end up where you want to at the end of the day. So I spend the first 60 minutes of every, prep day on one specific project that's the most important to me that needs to be accomplished. And then the other thing that we do at the end of the day is called the restoration routine. So the restoration routine includes, whatever it is to bring you down. So for me, we have a sauna in the winter, we have a hot tub, so we'll jump out in there and relax. Sometimes I'll jump into my journal and write a little bit about, whatever's happening at that point. There are other things that you can do. I don't necessarily do them all, but I know Dr. Mike Gibson, who helped create the chiropractic productivity system, Mike likes, doing some gratitude at the end of the day, wins and challenges. So I think whatever it is, the idea is to put it in place for you and be consistent with it. If you're jumping all over the place and adding and taking away, it obviously takes a bit to create a ritual. But once you do, my advice is just stick with it and make it your own.
Well, Jamie, sadly, we've reached the end of this interview. We're in the final thoughts home stretch section, so I have a few more thoughts before you go. Do you have a favorite book you would recommend to our listeners?
I do. And, it's interesting because I think that this book gets thrown around a lot, especially in our profession. But a lot of the people who throw this book around as one of their favorites, I sometimes question whether they've actually read the book. I hear them talk about, their personal philosophies and how they live their lives. And so I actually wonder if they've actually read it or if they just think that that's supposed to be, a pivotal book for them. But I can say it has been a pivotal book for me. And, a lot of the principles, not 100% apply, but Atlas Shrugged has been a really pivotal book for me. And in my philosophy, I would say I definitely hold much more of an objectivist viewpoint and just really resonated with that book. It happened at a time in my life that it really helped me get through a lot of challenges, and kind of going back to with the failures, helped me see what was important to me and really learn to not let other things peripheral to my values compromise what I was trying to accomplish.
Ayn Rand is the author of that book.
You got it.
And
That's right.
I have not read it. It is on my bookshelf. It looks thick.
I actually did the audiobook. So a lot of lawn cutting and long walks to get through the book, but that is my advice.
Well, I will take it because it's on my reading list, and I just keep finding, thinner books to read instead. What is the best business advice you've ever received?
The best business advice that I've ever received, and again, might seem a little bit odd, but it is who you are as a person is more important than who you are as a doctor or an entrepreneur. And, that concept really supersedes all the other pieces, because if who you are as a person, if your character is poor, that's going to translate into every single business decision that you make. So, and the opposite is true. I mean, you could be a great person with terrible business skills and it's going to be a problem as well. But, if we look at the hierarchy, who you are as a person is really the core component. So again, some of my failures, those are the key fundamental pieces that made me who I am. And it's only the business development and business acumen that had come after that. So, really pay attention to who you are and your character development.
That is so true, especially nowadays. We are in the age of authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
And, 10, 20 years ago, marketing was created and artificial, like Don Draper on Mad Men coming up with ad schemes. And now it's so person to person through social media that people sniff that out right away. And the other thing is that if you really want to connect people, just be yourself, which in a way that's easier than ever.
Yeah, I think it's great advice, Richard. And I think you've hit the nail on the head. I said, I can't remember what stage I said it from, but authenticity is the new black. It's really what we need to be and where we need to be at if you want to connect with people and you want them to, if you want them to even think about consuming your information, they need to first buy you and they need to first see you as someone who is authentic.
Dr. Richards, thank you so much for taking some of your valuable time and spending it with us today and our listeners. What's the best way for people to contact you to find out more about you and your businesses?
Yeah, if they'd love to check out Life by Design for Chiropractors, that's your best way is go to lifebydesignforchiropractors.com. We do have a podcast that comes out every 2 weeks where we share all kinds of tools and strategies, lots of our essentially coaching and consulting that we deliver for free so people can get that and get an idea of what we do and how we can help. Same thing through the same website. If you want to learn about our other online marketing systems, how to create your own website or have us help you do that, that's all on there. And if you want to contact me personally, you'll be able to see a link on that website.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Psst. Hey, this is Dr. Day. I hope you are enjoying the show. If you are, please do us a favor and jump on over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Chiro Business Mojo podcast at www.chirobusinessmojo.com.